Let me just say, after distorting the belt, they're proclaiming the real world champion. I'm going to tell you all, with a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life. When you walk around this world and you tell everybody you're number one, the only way you get to stay number one is to be number one.
Woo! Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the Captain Lou Sports Network, powered up by the Belly Up Sports Network of podcasts. Sit back and enjoy as we bring you the latest and greatest in the world of sports, everything from the Detroit Lions to the state of Michigan sports to around the country and around the world. So what are you waiting for? Let's get out there and let's watch the latest edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. And welcome everybody to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. We are live here on the Captain Lou Sports Network on our YouTube channel, and we are powered by the Belly Up Sports Network of podcasts and, of course, Belly Up Media. Good evening, everybody. It is Maylocks week. That means it is Michigan State week. That's right. There's no better week for college football here in the state of Michigan than this week. And we're joined tonight by a very special guest, my old tag team partner from way back when we used to do the Captain Lou and Matt show. We've endured a lot of tough losses in this Michigan State week, haven't we? Matt, welcome to the show again. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. It's great to be back once again.
Yeah, it's we've endured a lot with that rivalry. We'll talk about that a little bit, and also we're gonna talk about our Lions. I got to tell you, another disappointing loss this week, but we'll get into that, of course. Matt, I don't know what to do with Dan Campbell, man. I really don't.
You know, I've been backing the man since day one, but eventually, you can only give so many rah-rah speeches. His time management has to improve. Yeah, we talked about earlier. If you can't start actually producing wins, patience is going to be lost. I mean, it already is kind of being lost. We need to see results. And for an offense that was supposedly number one in the league a few weeks ago, that sure has changed. 6 points in 2 games is startlingly bad.
It's funny, Matt. I watched Colin Cowherd when I got home from work this afternoon, and he has his top 10 every Tuesday. And he had the Dallas Cowboys number 8. And I'm thinking to myself, Detroit made Dallas look really good. Dallas is not the 8th best team. I don't care what their record is. I can pick at least a dozen teams that can beat them. I wouldn't be surprised if Chicago gives them a tussle this week. But I look at the Lions, and what really got me over the edge this week was, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday on the phone, is he's talking about throwing the challenge flag. And he says that he didn't get the go-ahead or permission from upstairs to throw the flag. Well, who in the hell is the damn coach? He's the one in charge. Like you say, the emotion and everything after the hard knocks and all that. Bottom line, what is he? He's 4-20-1 or something like that. And I'm getting tired of the incompetence when it comes to game management. I think he's a great coordinator, but boy, oh boy, this game management shit, it's starting to drag me down again. And I'm not looking for another rebuild, but man, it would be nice to win some games.
Yeah, and we've talked about it. Even with how injured this team has been, they still have the pieces to succeed, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense has more question marks, but I think even on the offense, when you got a DeAndre Swift out, you still have Jamal Williams who carried the ball pretty well. The only problem is he's been fumbling. You've got Goff, who, in my opinion, you could do much worse at quarterback than him, but you could certainly do better. And, this last game kind of reflected that. He's very immobile. He's turnover prone. He's one of those guys where you need him to be comfortable in your offense, and you need to be able to build around him. And they still haven't fully been able to do that. It's been better this year. He's shown a lot more chemistry, but it's still just something's lacking, and especially the execution side of things. their offense just really, really struggled, especially when it comes to playing really, except for the Washington game, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. The defense, we just, it's a never ending theme. But now all of a sudden you start with the defense. I mean, if Detroit's in that position at the end of the year where they're a top 2 or top 3 team, how do you not take a quarterback? I know they got 2 first-round draft picks, and the Rams aren't exactly lighting it up, so maybe they can get a decent pick out of that. But my God, you got to go defense, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. And I think it'd be easier to go defense with your later first round pick if LA maybe doesn't have the best season. I'm still almost leaning maybe get a top defensive prospect first.
Yeah.
Otherwise, especially because this is looking to be a pretty stacked quarterback class. So yeah, well, obviously this is still a young season yet. We'll see how things shape up, but that's just how I would go.
Well, one thing that could make it a little bit better for us, Matt, is in 2 weeks, we're going to be up in that part of the country as Detroit takes on Green Bay at home. And I got to tell you, man, Aaron Rodgers looks terrible. That team looks terrible, and they could be the perfect elixir to turn it around. How did they lose to Washington last week after blowing that lead? Can you believe that?
Amazing. It really shows you the kind of uh, two sides you have to Carson Wentz. There's the guy that can create a lot of turnovers playing hero ball, but then he can save his team playing hero ball. It's kind of seen a mix of both, but yeah, to your credit, this is one of the weaker Green Bay teams we've seen in a very long time. Their defense has kind of slipped a little bit. Their offense, especially, has really struggled. Devontae Adams leaving really hurt them. Rodgers, doesn't even look as good. I think their offensive attack and their game planning, just that something's really been missing from that offense. That's just completely taken the potency away from them.
And he doesn't trust his rookie wide receivers, and losing David Bakhtiari, I think, has really hurt him too. That was his guy. And, I was listening today to a couple of shows, and they said that he doesn't know from day to day how his knee's going to be. And I wouldn't be surprised if Bakhtiari doesn't play the rest of the year, and that could really hurt Green Bay. I mean, not that that would break my heart. Don't get me wrong. I hope he doesn't. I hope if he decides to play, it's after they play the Lions. But I mean, they're not utilizing Corey Dillon or the other running back. His name escapes me right now. It's amazing. So go ahead.
Well, that was what I was also going to touch on too. Like you look at the running game, especially in that Washington game, it's been just extremely lacking. And like AJ Dillon, like you said, he's a good running back. Like it's been bad. It shows you how much the offensive line has struggled, and that's maybe where Detroit could potentially have the edge.
Let's hope. And then the other team on the bottom side of the coin is, I went to my favorite DraftKings account and put a couple of shackles on Tampa Bay as part of a parlay. Who in the world, a money line parlay at that? I didn't even have to lay any points. How in the hell did they lose 21-3 to Carolina, who was starting PJ Walker and they didn't have Christian McCaffrey? What the hell is up with that?
Shoot, the last team to make PJ Walker look that good was our team.
Yeah, that's right.
When we got shut out, that was Patricia's last game. But it's a huge win for Carolina, especially because I really think their defense has some decent pieces. Like Hubbard's a solid defensive end, but I think it also shows how fragile Tampa Bay is right now, especially in their offense. Like their defense is still pretty solid, but man, their offense is really we talked about Green Bay and how their offense has lost some potency. I mean, you can say the same about Tampa Bay. They almost seem like the same team right now.
Yeah, that's bad. But, the thing that they've got going for them is they're in a really bad division and they could still win that division. Yeah, I mean, New Orleans is kind of in flux. Atlanta's a sneaky team. They could win 7-8 games. 8, 9, 9, 8 might win that. Yeah, exactly. And, it's so who knows? But on the flip side, who's the best team in your eyes in the NFL? I got to think Buffalo. After that win against Kansas City, I think they got to be thought of as the best team. And I still think Kansas City might be the second best, even though they got 2 losses. But Philly, I love how Philly's playing. I love how Jalen Hurts is playing.
I gotta give Philly a lot of credit. They have managed, especially in the offseason with the moves they've made. They have just done an excellent job of building the right kind of team around Jalen Hurts. He's been able to just absolutely thrive, and he's a guy I didn't quite know if I thought would really succeed. But man, you talk about excellent coaching and the right managerial decisions to build around a guy like him and build around his strengths, which is, running out of the pocket, making these excellent throws off the back foot, which we saw when they played Detroit, we got a lot of pressure on the guy, but he's just made these excellent plays and to these receivers that they acquired, like AJ Brown, who has been a superstar for him. And then you get Devontae Smith, who another great receiver for them. They're just loaded all over on the offensive side.
Yeah. And, Detroit looked really good in that game against Philadelphia. That's for sure.
They did.
One last thing on the NFL real quick. I got a fantasy football question. Well, first of all, it kind of relates to this. I saw today that Matt Ryan's out at Indianapolis. He's been benched. So they're putting in Sam Ellinger in at quarterback. So here's my question for you, a fantasy football question. One of my leagues this week, I had 2 quarterbacks. I've got Patrick Mahomes. He's on a bye, and my backup was Baker Mayfield. So I got to make a switch. Who do I go with? Sam Ellinger or Jacoby Brissett, or possibly one of the New Orleans quarterbacks, depending on who's starting?
Oh.
What would you do out of those 3? My emotions are saying Sam Ellinger to start. They're playing Washington at home. Cleveland's playing Cincinnati on Monday night at home. So I'm leaning towards maybe Brissett only because there might be some points scored in that game. I don't care who wins. I just want him to get me, 20 points, 20 to 25 points somehow.
The only reason I would lean Indianapolis is I think they've got better weapons in their passing game. Like Michael Pittman's a great option. Alec Pierce has really come into his own.
Yes,
and of course they have a great offensive line. So I honestly might go Sam Ellinger. It's still a risky move because we don't know what we're going to see out of him, but it certainly offers some upside.
Just 1 week until Mahomes comes back.
Yeah.
Because in our league that you and I are in, I've got Jared Goff. So, that he's my stopgap this week with Mahomes because I got Mahomes in both leagues. So, yeah. And then, of course, last night in this other league, we have a survivor pool, and I was sitting good. So I picked the New England Patriots to win. And boy, did they lay an egg last night. Did you see any of that? I watched the first half before I went to bed. And where they had they benched Mac Jones after 3 series and put Zappy back in. And apparently he didn't do very good in the second half because they got clocked. But that's kind of a mess there. So I'm out of the survivor pool. I didn't think Chicago had a prayer going in there.
Well, especially on the road at New England, that's a team that has been historically very good at home. I didn't think Chicago had a chance in the world with how that offense has been performing. But man, like we saw what they're capable of now. I never would have expected New England to get blown out. It was crazy.
No, hey everybody, I'm joined by my old tag team partner Matt Gamlin, Matt, I was thinking about it tonight. I think we started this in 2010, but when we started doing our podcast on Blog Talk Radio on Saturday nights, and what I remember, the only reason I think it was is because we were talking, and I remember we had that one guy call us and ask us about Prince Fielder before he started the 4-letter tirade on there after that. But if I remember right, he asked us about Prince Fielder, and then it was so funny because we never thought in a million years that they would sign him, but they ended up doing that. So it's probably been 12 years since we started doing this, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think so, just about. And I know in 2010 we were doing those Williamston games together. So I mean, we've
Yep.
been doing. It's been 12 years.
2009 is when we did our first high school broadcast. I remember
That's right.
that. So,
Yep.
yep, 2010 we got to go to Ford Field to broadcast a state championship game. That was
Man.
quite amazing. Long time
And,
ago. Holy cow, time flies.
it's crazy to think one of the quarterbacks we beat is a current Dallas Cowboys backup.
That's right, Cooper Rush. We got to watch him together in high school. I mentioned that last week, and yeah, and who would have thought? I mean, we thought he was decent, but if you would have told me he'd be, making millions of dollars as a professional quarterback, I'd have said, nah, I really don't think so.
Yeah,
You know?
and speaks to the work ethic of the guy because we went over to Central and started for quite a few years, then goes to the NFL, kind of bounces around between practice squads and backup jobs. But I think this latest stretch of games, he's going
Yeah.
to be he at least has a backup position guaranteed to him
Well,
with the way he performed.
if he doesn't want to stay in Dallas, I know Detroit would probably take him as a backup next year with their quarterback situation.
Yeah.
And the other ironic thing is we got to do another Lansing Catholic quarterback in a playoff game that ended up playing for both Central and West Virginia as a tight end, Tony Poljan. Remember?
That's right. Yep,
Yeah,
I do.
yeah. He was his story was crazy because he started out, he did a verbal commit with Minnesota. And then when Jerry Kill got let go or had to quit because of health reasons, he backed out, was going to go to Oregon, and then signed with Michigan State at first to be a tight end, then ended up going to Central, playing quarterback and then tight end. And then he transferred to West Virginia for his a grad transfer. So anyways, I digress. But hey, you can be a part of the show. Just follow us on Twitter at Real Captain Lou or my Facebook page, the Captain Lou Extravaganza, or drop me an email at sweetlou1965 at yahoo.com. Matt, let's get now talking to the big game, our big game for this weekend. It's a night game. Unfortunately, I won't be able to watch it, which may not be a bad thing because I've got a hockey game to do, and you're going to be at a wedding. So neither one of us are going to watch it, but I have a feeling we'll both be kind of doing one of these.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
From time to time on the sly, just be like, oh, okay. But it's the coaches are saying the right things this week. It's the game. The spread is 22.5 on that game, but we'll talk about that a little later because I got a feeling that's going to be part of our Captain Lou 6-pack challenge. But last year's game wasn't the most frustrating one. We both know what the most frustrating game was. You and I watched that together in my old apartment in 2015. Remember, we were going to get all set to go down to Clavon's for a big old pizza feast, and that damn fumbled punt. We've seen some heartbreakers over the years, Matt, with these two teams being Michigan fans, man. I don't want to put the Maloik on them, but my God, they're at Michigan. Michigan seems to be going on all cylinders right now. But you can throw records out the window, man, in this one.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not taking Michigan in the points there. But
no.
We go back to last year's game. It was, man, the way our defense was great last year. I mean, we had Aiden Hutchinson and a bunch of other people just wrecking offenses all year, but they had no answer for Kenneth Walker.
Unbelievable.
No answer. He ran all over us. And, I think our offense did okay to stay in the game, but my gosh, that's where Michigan State has dominated the Wolverines for years, is in the running game.
Yeah.
But this year, I think could be different in that aspect because we've seen it every year. It's those who dominate the running game in this rivalry that historically get the advantage. And like I said, that's where Michigan State, maybe up until this year, has always had the advantage.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, I wouldn't be surprised, Matt, if it starts out slow like Michigan games have started out this year. Iowa, Penn State. There was another one where Maryland, Indiana. They kind of start out a little sluggish and then they come on in the second half. That's what I've really been impressed with Michigan is how they make their adjustments at halftime.
Yeah.
And but Michigan State, they salvaged, I think, something against Wisconsin that built a little bit of confidence in them, because I can't imagine, then having 2 weeks to stew after losing to Wisconsin. But I don't know, man. It's almost, knock on wood, too good to be true. Michigan's playing so well, but it's gonna be one of those games. I don't care if Michigan wins 3-2 or 65-0. I just want them to win just once, man. I don't know how many times I've seen that fumbled punt in the last 7 days, man. Oh my God. I see it in my sleep.
I just try to look away whenever I can.
Yeah, no kidding. But it's a fun time though. It's for those that are watching that aren't from Michigan, it's such a fun rivalry, and it's a state divided for sure. And it's a night game. Thank God it's not a night game in East Lansing, but coaches beware, even though some may burn anyways. So, but yeah, so I got to tell you, I got to ask you, we've got, Michigan ranked 4th or 3rd, depending on what poll that you look at. Ohio State is ranked 2nd for the most part behind Georgia. What do you think? Is Ohio State the best team in the country right now, or do you think Michigan is right there with them? Or do you think Georgia still stands out?
Well, I think Georgia still stands out, but between Ohio State and Michigan, it's tough to really pick one, because neither team has really had a massive test. You could argue Michigan's was biggest test so far, maybe Maryland.
Yeah.
And Ohio State, they haven't had a much tougher schedule. I think if you're really going to find out who's their team come the last game of each team's schedule when they face each other, I think that's the only way we can really find out.
Yeah. What do you make of just some of the other teams right now? I look at Tennessee. I mean, that game against Alabama was amazing, and they're playing well. But here's a scenario I talked about last week. I want to get just think of what would happen here, Matt. Georgia plays Tennessee, I think, in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, something like, might even be in 2 weeks. And then, so let's say Georgia beats Tennessee. Alabama wins their division, and then they beat Georgia in the championship game. So you got 3 teams tied with 1 loss in the top 4 of the SEC. Then you got either Ohio State or Michigan, or both. Let's say let's say Michigan beats Ohio State, or the vice versa, and they win the championship, the Big Ten. You only got 4 spots. Clemson's getting a free ride. I still say that conference is weak. I don't care. I mean,
yeah, there could be some trouble brewing with that team with their quarterback situation too. Yes. Who knows?
I can't see a scenario with 3 SEC teams going, but I think that would create so much controversy if that 3-way tie ended up like that, because it would be funny in my opinion.
I think with the strength of these teams, sure, maybe, but you're right, it would create a massive amount of controversy. We also got to consider some of the other outliers. If they run the table, like for example, TCU, they're undefeated right now. If they ran the table and we saw the right teams lose above them, I mean, they could sneak in. Tennessee, though, I think is for real. I could see it definitely being maybe Georgia, Tennessee, possibly the Final Four, with either Ohio State or Michigan, whoever wins Big Ten out of that. And then maybe like a Big 12 or a Pac-12 team maybe sneaks in.
I think the only one that could sneak in right now would possibly be TCU. Yeah. If they run the table. But I don't see a Pac-12 team coming in because they all got one loss. It would have to really take some shuffling around to do that. But it's it's going to be interesting to see. Well, Matt, we got about 10 minutes left of the show. So what I want to do is you're going to be our guest picker tonight here. You're going to see how you do different with me. Where our Captain Lou 6-pack challenge, how it works, everybody. For those that aren't familiar with it, I've got 6 games tonight that I do 6 games every week, 3 pro, 3 college. Pick them against the spread. Your job is to pick them better than me. And if you do, you're going to go into the drawing at the end of the year. We've got a Fanatics gift card and a Visa gift card that we are giving away thanks to our sponsors. So at Fanatics. So what I need you to do is to make those picks. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar how it works, again, drop me an email at sweetlou1965@yahoo.com or follow me on Twitter at RealCaptainLou or on the Captain Lou Extravaganza Facebook page. Give me your picks against the spread. Now, remember, too, since we have to use tonight's spread, they may change. It may fluctuate a point or two, but you got to use these points because I can't use them. You can't pick it Saturday morning if one of these games drops a couple of points. You got to use tonight's spread. I will have these posted on my Facebook and Twitter pages tomorrow. So make sure you do that. Sound simple enough, Matt?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go. We're going to go college bound first with our picks. Here we go. First game that we're going to pick. Oklahoma State is at Kansas State. Kansas State is a 1-point favorite at home. Oklahoma State coming off a big win last week over Texas. Give me your opinion first, and I'll give you my pick.
At home, but at home for Kansas State, it does create a little bit of doubt. I'm gonna go with Oklahoma State to cover, though. I think this is another team that could maybe be looking to maybe sneak in, and they got to run the table with one loss. So I think they'll get this win, but I think they'll cover the 1.5. But that one's kind of a tough call.
I'm going with you on that. My picks are in bold, going across the bottom of the screen. I'm taking the Pokes plus the 1. I just think that they play now. I don't know if there's going to be any letdown after playing Texas. Texas to me, they're good, but and they've got Quentin Ewers, but obviously they didn't have a good enough defense. But I just like how Oklahoma State's playing right now. I think they're clicking on all cylinders. I'm going with the Cowboys getting the point, which that really doesn't mean a whole lot. It's almost like it's a money line pick, but I'll go with Oklahoma State as well, plus the point. Next game on our agenda tonight is one of the Big Ten clashes. There's only 2 games really that had both teams in the top 25. First one being Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and then this one. Ohio State is at Penn State. Penn State is at home getting 15.5. Now, I saw what Penn State did to Minnesota last week, but I think Minnesota's kind of I just think they're fool's gold. I mean, that Big Ten West is so bad. I mean, compared to the East, I give it no credence. Ohio State, to me, C.J. Stroud is looking good. They dropped 54 on the road, or 54, against Iowa. And I don't think that's enough points. I think Ohio State has got something to prove. This is a game that they want to give a statement on this game. Just for what you said earlier, Matt, and I agree with you. They haven't really beaten anybody. Yeah, they pounded Iowa, but Iowa's not the same Iowa team. They've got some issues, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm going with Penn State. I'm going with Ohio State covering 15.5.
I'm almost tempted to take Penn State just to cover because they're at home in Happy Valley. But to your credit, I think you make a good point. I think they got something to prove, and Penn State just doesn't have the offensive firepower to match up with a team like Ohio State, or as we saw with Michigan. So I'll take Ohio State to cover.
You know what James Franklin's record is against top 10 teams?
What is it?
Oh, for everybody.
Ooh.
Throw another peanut butter and jelly sandwich at him, you whiner. Michigan's got bigger fish to fry, baby. That's including this
Oh, yeah.
weekend. I just love when Jim Harbaugh said that, man. That's awesome. So we're both in agreement so far, I think. So, okay, next up. I don't normally do this, but it's Maylocks week. We can't go without making our pick on this one. Michigan State is at Michigan. Michigan is a 22.5-point favorite right now. And I'm going to let you go first this time. I went first last time. Go ahead.
Well, I kind of spoiled it earlier, but I can't take 22.5. I got Michigan State. I think will cover. I think it'll be a lower scoring game. Michigan State will probably pull out all the tricks to stay close. I think Michigan, at least on paper, is a much stronger team, so they'll probably take it. But I just 22.5 is way too much.
I agree. I could see this being a 38-24 game, maybe, or 31-17. I just don't. Because Michigan State's going to come out playing on emotion in the first half, and that'll carry them for a while. It's a night game. They're going to be sitting all day waiting for this one, and I think Michigan's going to win. I totally agree, but I don't think they're going to cover 22.5. I love Michigan. Yeah, I don't see it happening. My heart wants me to do it. It really does. My heart wants me to go with Michigan laying the 22.5, but no, I'm with you. I'm going with Michigan State getting the points. They're not going to win, but I think Michigan's going to win, but it's going to be a 2-touchdown deficit, not 22.5. Again, we're powered by the Belly Up Network, bellyup.com network of podcasts, Belly Up Sports Media. Also, you can see us on our YouTube channel, which is the Captain Lou Sports Network. Follow us there. Subscribe to our channel there, where you can watch all of our shows that we've done here, including some of my high school shows from last year as well. So, again, thank you for joining us tonight here as we're going through our Captain Lou Six-Pack Challenge. Email me your picks, sweetlou1965@yahoo.com. My picks are on the bottom of the screen scrolling right along, so keep up with those. If you think you can pick those games better than me, if you think that Oklahoma State may lose, here's your chance. I was 4-2 last week, and I'll tell you why. One of my picks was I went against the Dallas Cowboys. I thought the Lions would at least cover, and of course they laid an absolute egg again. Matt, our first game on the pro side tonight is we're going back to Dallas. They're a 9.5-point favorite at home against Chicago. Now, I watched Chicago last night. This one was kind of a toughie for me only because Chicago's coming in on short rest. But I got to be honest with you. I wasn't that impressed with Dak Prescott. I think there's still something wrong with his thumb. His passing was off, but when Detroit fumbled on the 1-yard line, that took all the wind out of their sails, and they went right down, methodically scored. Tony Pollard, I think, is a better running back than Zeke right now, but I think their offense has got issues, and I think Chicago's defense can keep them in the game. 9.5 is a lot of points in pro football. Now, granted, I know it's at home, but I think Justin Fields, I think he can run on them. And I think he can do what he did against New England. I'm not saying Chicago's going to win, but I think it's going to be a one-score game. So I'm taking Chicago, and I'm going to take Chicago and the 9.5. Go ahead.
I think a week ago, this would have been a foregone conclusion for me, because Chicago just hadn't really impressed me that much yet. But man, this past game really changed the outlook of that team. This will be the first different one we have. I'll take Dallas to cover. I could definitely see it going the other way and it being a lot closer. I think could see Dak maybe return more to form. I think the running game is still at least okay on a bad day. I think their defense, while I think their secondary could be a little suspect at times, they still have a great pass rush, still have a great front four and front seven, like with guys like Micah Parsons. I'll take them to cover. I could, especially with them at home. I think they pull away late, kind of like what happened with Detroit.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so that's our first one that we differ on. Next one, we're going to go to Seattle. Geno Smith has got a new lease on life, Matt. He is just thriving out there in the great Northwest with Russell Wilson gone. The New York Giants, here's two teams, Matt. If you'd have told me after 7 games that these two teams, well, if Seattle would be in first place and the New York Giants would be 6-1, I'd have said, show me the money. But wow, they're both playing well. Brian Dable's been a hell of a difference for the Giants, and Geno, he's got some weapons finally. I'm going to let you go first on this one. This one is this is going to be a difficult one to call, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you could go either way with this one. Man, the Seahawks with Geno, it's been impressive and it surprised a lot of people. I mean, really, both teams have. It shows you what good coaching can really do for teams that supposedly don't have as much talent as a team like Buffalo or Kansas City. And we've seen it with the Giants. They've made a massive turnaround. Even Seattle, like Geno looks like a new quarterback out there at times. And they got a great running game right now, even with Rashad Penny out right now. Ken Walker's still doing some good things. I think he's got an incredibly bright future in the NFL. I'll take Seattle to cover. I could see New York winning. I'll take Seattle to cover, though.
Well, you gave me your reason, your last reason, or the last person you talked about is why I think I'm going to take the edge. I'm going to agree with you and go with Seattle in this one. Is Kenneth Walker. I think they think so highly of him in Seattle, and he had a nice game last week. Now, granted, 65 or 67 of it was on that last run, but the guy's a firepower. He's just a spark plug for him, man. And he proved it at Michigan State and Wake Forest even before that. But Geno's got some weapons. He's got Tyler Lockett. He's got Noah Fant. He's got, and their defense isn't bad. The Giants are playing well, but they're going cross country. And they've been on a roll. And so I think that's going to take a little bit out of them. So I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go with Seattle getting the points and or Seattle laying the 3. I think they're going to win. And and they're going to stay in first place. Again, who would have thought that with
amazing
Arizona and Seattle or San Francisco and the Rams all kind of sputtering out, although I'm going to ask you before we go tonight, after we make our last pick, I'm going to ask you your opinion on that trade, but let's get to our last pick here. We're going to go with the Monday Night Football game, Cincinnati at Cleveland. Cleveland's getting 3 points. I touched on this a little bit earlier when I asked you about if I should get Jacoby Brissett or Sam Ehlinger. I'll go first on this one. Cincinnati, I think, is starting to round into form. This is a rivalry game of sorts in the NFL for the state of Ohio. If Cleveland had, I don't know. I just think Cincinnati's rounding into form. I like some of the play of Cleveland, but they've also pissed away a couple of games they should have won. I don't know if Joe Burrow's going to throw for 300 and some yards in the first half like he did last week for somebody on their fantasy football team. But I'm taking Cincinnati to cover on the road at Cleveland, and I think they're going to try to get that grip back on first place in their division.
Yeah, they kind of had a slow start to the year, but like you said, they're returning to form. I fully expect Cincinnati to run away with this game.
Okay, so there's my picks. We'll go through them real quick. I've got Oklahoma State. I'm taking them getting the point against Kansas State. I'm going to take Ohio State getting 50 or laying the 15.5 at Penn State. I'm going to take Michigan State getting 22.5 against Michigan. This is where Matt and I differ. I'm taking Chicago getting the 9.5. He's going to lay the points with Dallas. I'm taking Seattle -3 at home, and I'm taking Cincinnati on the road laying the 3 against Cleveland. So one more time, how this works is drop me a note at the Captain Lou Extravaganza Facebook page, or email me at sweetlou1965@yahoo.com, or follow me on Twitter at RealCaptainLou. Two more things, Matt, real quick before we let you go. The Pistons started out 1-2. I think they're playing tonight against Washington, if I'm not mistaken. You know, I like what they're building. You know, and it looks like maybe this year they've got a little bit of direction with these youngsters. Dwayne Casey's got to do something this year for him to stay as our head coach. You know,
Yep.
I mean, but I know that they've invested in a lot of young talent. Give me your initial impressions on the Pistons through 4 games or 3 games.
In my opinion, they're the most exciting Detroit team in the 4 major sports that we have. I mean, they have very young, impressive talent. You know, Jalen Duren, he's already had a good game in that opener where he had a double-double coming off the bench. Jaden Ivey looks great. Cade, you know, although some have been a little critical of him at times, I think he's been awesome for them. Yeah, I think he could maybe improve his shooting just a tiny bit, but like hasn't even been bad. Still average. He's still going to get you good, at least 15 to 18 points at least.
Yeah.
He's an excellent facilitator. He can rebound. He can defend. You know, Isaiah Stewart, he's a guy that's improved his game, especially his jump shot. He had that game icing 3 against the Magic. I just, you know, I think where they lack at times, and I question at times some of their players' defensive abilities. And, you know, with Casey, I'm just not sure yet. And, you know, what kind of identity does this team really have yet? That I'm not exactly sure. I think there's a lot of pieces there. It's just they still have yet to put it together and play a full 60 minutes a lot of games. And that's what's been killing them.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think with Casey, he's proven to be a good coach, but I think this year, if he can at least get them to a 10 seed, get them into a playing game, I don't know. I think you got to move on.
I agree. It's put up or shut up time for him. He's had quite a bit of a long leash with the Pistons. And, you know, after a while, you're right. You got to get a fresh voice in there for sure. Last one, we had a trade last week, right before in the NFL, before week 7, with San Francisco and Carolina. We talked about a little bit how they cleaned house. I'm surprised at the amount of people that are waffling on who got the better of the deal. And it got me thinking, you know, with Christian McCaffrey going to San Francisco, you know, if he stays healthy, yeah, I think he's going to be a piece to the puzzle that could help them possibly get back to the Super Bowl. But my question is, Matt, I'm not so sure Carolina didn't get that bad of a deal in return, because he has not been that reliable for them. He's been injured quite a bit. What do you think? Is this one of those trades that we're going to have to wait for a year or so to kind of look back on to see who got the better of the deal?
I think so, especially because, you know, they couldn't get a first rounder for McCaffrey. They got some decent draft capital, but, you know, we really are going to see how good their front office is and the picks that they make in those later rounds, because that's sometimes when those gems can be found, and that's sometimes where those empty picks can be made. Now, for San Francisco, I almost would say, at least right now, they got the better of this deal. Because, I mean, for them, even though they had to give up a bit of draft capital, it's still very low risk for them. They've still got a very good team. And if McCaffrey can stay healthy, I think that's just another great weapon for Jimmy Garoppolo and the offense, you know, with Kyle Kuchik, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and, you know, Jimmy G, when, you don't have to rely on him too heavily. He's a serviceable QB. But, you know, the more I think about it, that's a team that's not going to have to rely so much on McCaffrey to be their lead guy. And they could potentially limit his snaps a little bit, maybe keep him a little healthier. So, I mean, maybe if they can use him properly, that could keep him healthier, and, you know, their offense could get a boost as a result. But I like the move. It's low risk for San Francisco, and I think Carolina, if they're really going to rebuild it, this will kind of help their efforts. Because I think at this point they kind of have to. They just hit the reset button.
Well, we'll have to wait and find out. Well, Matt, that's going to do it here tonight. I appreciate you taking time out tonight and being part of the broadcast. It's always fun catching up with you live here on the air. It seems like we always have fun doing it together. We'll get you back on again down the road real quick. So again, Matt, thanks for taking time out tonight. Don't go anywhere after the broadcast. I want to talk to you for a minute. So hang in there. Hang in there on hold. Don't go anywhere. Well, that's going to do it tonight here on the show. I want to thank everybody for taking time out to watch us. And I want to thank my old tag team partner, Matt Gamlin, for coming on the broadcast here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza here on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. And of course, you see us on my Twitter page and also on our Facebook pages as well. So join us. Give me your feedback. Shoot me an email, sweetlou1965@yahoo.com. We're going to be back next Tuesday night for another show, 7:30 Eastern time. We're going to have my good buddy Jimmy Young from up in the UP. We're going to talk pro football with him, some high school stuff, whatever, some nostalgia. It's always a good time with my buddy Jimmy Young. So he's going to jump by next Tuesday night at 7:30. So I hope you get a chance to check us out there. Captain Lou saying, keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving. And as always, keep your minds open. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. So long.